If someone in Skyrim wants to learn how to cast magic, they have to read some books to gain ultimate power over their foes. But what if said person has the memory of a dementia-ridden goldfish? Well, that's where scrolls come in. I see them as a cheat sheet to magic. All the power with none of the work. The only downside is that they are a one-time use item. Once the words are spoken, the scroll is lost. So I asked myself, can you beat Skyrim using only scrolls? The rules are as follows. I'm not allowed to use any spells that aren't from a scroll, and I can only deal damage to enemies using scrolls. Let's get started. After about 30 minutes of this nonsense...
Hey. Would you like a chili, baby?
My first order of business is to get my hands on some sinister stationery. First, I pillaged a floor chest at Dawnstar for some cash. Then after checking the Blue Palace Mage's chest for scrolls, which I was very disappointed to find out didn't have any, I checked the stock of every court wizard in all the major holds to see if I could buy some. And after finding out that the only person selling any was Sybil, and that she was selling them at an incredibly exorbitant price, I mean, Jesus Christ, you need a mortgage to get one of these stupid things. My next step is to check the College of Winterhold. Now, anyone who's anyone knows about the Atronach Forge. You can use it to make a plethora of magic items. And 3 of those items are scrolls. A scroll of Conjure Flame Atronach, a scroll of Conjure Frost Atronach, and a scroll of Conjure Storm Atronach. I decided to make the fire one, for no particular reason. To make it, I'm going to need 1 roll of paper, 1 bowl of fire salts, and 1 piece of charcoal. So I'm off to gather the ingredients before I pay a visit to Pigspot School of Magic and Sorcery, because getting inside the college grounds is going to require some work. Getting the paper was easy. I just half-inch it from Farengar's study. But getting the charcoal took quite a long time. I must have checked every single house in Whiterun for the blasted things, but not a single sliver showed up. After wasting so much time doing this, I was annoyed to find out you can just buy them from War Maidens. So after spending 6 gold on 1 tiny piece, which is a blatant rip-off, the fire salts I can get from the college grounds. When I arrive at the college, I'm confronted by Ferolda, but I'm not allowed to cast any spells whatsoever, so I won't be able to pass her test. But luckily, there's a much older and evil magic I can use to get in. It's the lost sorcery of kettle jumping. After heading straight into the midden, I pick up the fire salts I need next to the forge, then after making a couple of scrolls, I try to duplicate them at the gates of Whiterun. But to my surprise, it turns out that you can't. I don't know for sure, but I think it's because I made them at the Atronach Forge. Because as you'll see later, I duplicated other scrolls that I picked up from the environment. Since I can't dupe the scroll itself, I decided to do it to the ingredients so I could make more of them. After doing just that, it's time to get the Dragonstone. I had to run past all the enemies in here. I only had a few Atronach scrolls and I needed to save them for the boss. Because if he ends up killing all of them, then I'll have to go and make more. Which is a ball ache because doing the kettle jump to get in there takes the biscuit. After picking up a scroll of Fireball on this table, I end up going back on my decision almost immediately when I use 2 of the Atronach scrolls to kill this spider, which sends me down to 1 Atronach scroll and 1 Fireball scroll. Luckily, I managed to find another one inside this chest, but I'm going to try and not use all the Fireball scrolls as they will be sorely needed later. Turns out the King of the Asbos barely had time to leave his coffin before my Atronach incinerated him off the face of Nirn. After grabbing Steve Jobs' favourite house brick, I duplicated some Fireball scrolls and delivered the Dragonstone to Farengar. Fighting the first dragon at the Watchtower went better than I expected, since he has a 50% resistance to fire. Despite this though, I barbecued him like a rack of ribs. After jumping up the side of Tamriel's tallest mountain like a frog and shouting at some pensioners, I head to Ustengrav to get the Coffin Dodger's party horn back, which turns out to be a cakewalk, because the Fireball scroll is Skyrim's equivalent to a fat man. It nukes everything in its path. After grabbing Delphine's character sheet, I decided to give Mirak's goons the run around for a bit, because pissing off arseholes is a hobby of mine. Then I duplicate a ton of fireball scrolls and pay a visit to the filthy criminal. I can't complain too much though, because I found a firestorm scroll in a secret room. If the fireball scroll is a fat man, this one is the sun exploding. My god, this thing packs a wallop. After finally putting Mirak's smooth brains 6 feet deep, I duped the firestorm scrolls. My thought process for this was that they would carry me through the run, which was a severe lapse of judgment, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Then me and Delphine travelled to Kynesgrove, and Salakanir got absolutely decimated by Firestorm. Then I do some clothes shopping at the Radiant Raiment. Now that I'm kitted out with the latest fashion, I couldn't bear the idea of waiting around whilst Delphine comes up with a plan to get into the Thalmor Embassy. So I decided to go for a more council estate solution, and by that I mean jump the fence. Although my version does seem a tad more graceful than your average criminal. Aside from a few troublemakers, I barely had to do any fighting in here. So after grabbing Esbern's high school yearbook, I immediately head to Riften and murder my way through the yobbos in the Ratway. After reuniting E-Dog with his carer, I go with them to Calfspire to bust some forsworn heads and listen to Esbern's twaddle about hokey religions and ancient prophecies. After making my obligatory trip to check on our favourite sanity-impaired hermit, I began my trip to Alfland. On the way, I hunt some poachers, find a horse trapped in a rock, and two-shotted a dragon into the afterlife. This might be a good time to mention that I only leveled up once in this entire run. So currently, I am level 2. And according to the unofficial Elder Scrolls wiki, the recommended level for Alfland is 16. So despite my scrolls doing decent damage up to this point, even Jadar managed to survive a full-on blast of Firestorm to the face. So there was no way I was going to take on an entire clan of Fulmer. After a few somewhat unsuccessful attempts, I finally managed to get past them. After preventing a murder with murder, I run to the tower, and once I get my hands on the bi-dimensional bog roll, I try my hand at some time travel. After learning Dragon Rend, me and Alduin duke it out. Now, if you didn't know already, the lowest level Alduin can go is 10. And because I'm level 2, my attacks, even Firestorm, do such shit damage. And as embarrassed as I am to admit this, because I always bully him for being a pussy, he knocked my rocker something awful for ages. Oh, how the turntables. The main reason for this is because Alduin can stagger me out of Firestorm almost constantly. And I was surprised by this, as not a single enemy thus far has managed to do this. It happened so frequently, I had no choice but to run away to go and duplicate some fire scrolls, due to me lacking them. There's a lesson to be learned here about not putting all your eggs in one basket, but I don't want to read that deeply into it. It turns out that this was an incredibly good idea though, as after getting them, I burnt his arse to a crisp instantly. He ain't shit without his poise damage. And you know what? Even though I got my ass beat by him, let's take a look at the Steam charts for Skyrim. In 2023, Skyrim was played by 408,002 people. And even if just 80% of those players beat the main quest, because he gets beaten twice in one playthrough, that means in 2023 he potentially got his ass kicked 652,802 times. So him killing me a bunch of times is a drop in the ocean compared to the monumental magnitude of his failures. And don't forget, this is just the stats for Steam, so if you factor in console players, that number skyrockets. Anyway, moving on. After giving a TED talk on why Alduin ain't shit, I kidnap Odoving and run as fast as I can to the portal. I kick Arnie's ass, then me and the Three Stooges face Alduin one last time. And this time, because I mainly used the fireballs, he got his wings clipped pretty quickly. Now that Tamriel is safe from the World Eater, I return to the Mages College to prove that I am more powerful than any of these hacks, and I never used up a single point of magicka. And with that, I beat Skyrim using scrolls. I've never really used scrolls before this, as I usually solve my problems with sharpened steel and brute force. But I have to admit, after this, I'm definitely going to be using them more often. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not leave a like and subscribe? It helps out the channel massively. Plus, if you turn on the notification bell, you get to watch more juicy content from yours truly when it releases. If you want to support me further, consider joining as a channel member. You get early access to videos and a mention in them for being such a legend. If there's a specific video you want to see, or you just want to have a chat, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.